Welcome back to Nation of Glory, the channel where we bring you the stories of legends, icons, and pioneers who shaped the world of cinema and left their mark on history. Today, we dive into the life of a man who is more than just a director, more than just a storyteller. He is the master of suspense, the man who could make your heart race with silence, the man who transformed thrillers into an art form. His name is Sir Alfred Joseph Hitchcock, and his journey is one of passion, innovation, and an unshakable belief in the power of cinema. When people think of fear, of suspense, of mystery on the big screen, one name always rises above the rest: Alfred Hitchcock. His films didn't just entertain, they crawled under your skin. He understood something few directors ever did: that fear is not in the monster you see, but in the footsteps you hear, in the shadow on the wall, in the silence that makes you hold your breath. For over 6 decades, Hitchcock mastered the art of manipulating emotions, and in the process, he became one of the most influential filmmakers in history. But Alfred Hitchcock's story didn't begin in the glamour of Hollywood. He was born in London in 1899, the youngest of 3 children in a modest family. His father was a greengrocer, his mother a homemaker, and their life was ordinary. Yet Alfred himself was far from ordinary. From an early age, he was fascinated by storytelling, by art, and by the darker sides of human psychology. He was shy, often solitary, and preferred books and imagination to the company of others. Little did the world know, this quiet boy would grow up to terrify millions with the power of his imagination. As a child, Alfred had a strict upbringing. One incident that stayed with him forever was when his father, trying to discipline him, sent him to the local police station with a note. The policeman locked him in a cell for a few minutes and told him, "This is what happens to naughty boys." That experience of fear, confinement, and authority left a deep impression on young Alfred, one that would later echo through his films, where police, prisons, guilt, and justice became recurring themes. Hitchcock's path into cinema wasn't straightforward. He studied engineering and navigation, but his real passion was drawing and storytelling. He started working at a telegraph company, but in his spare time, he wrote stories and studied film. When the American film industry began influencing Europe, Alfred was drawn to the world of moving pictures. In the early 1920s, he found work as a title card designer for silent films. It was a modest role, but it was his entry into cinema. He learned the craft from the ground up: editing, production, art direction, absorbing everything around him like a sponge. By 1925, Hitchcock got his first chance to direct. His early silent films showed glimpses of the unique style that would later define him. He was fascinated by how a camera could tell a story without words, how an image could create suspense. But it was in the 1930s that Hitchcock truly began to find his voice. Films like The 39 Steps and The Lady Vanishes turned him into one of Britain's top directors. He had developed a signature style: ordinary people caught in extraordinary situations, suspense built not on monsters, but on human psychology, and his famous concept of the MacGuffin, an object that drives the plot but whose true meaning doesn't matter. Hollywood soon noticed. In 1939, Alfred Hitchcock moved to America, where his career reached heights no one could have imagined. His first American film, Rebecca, won the Academy Award for Best Picture. It was a gothic story of love, jealousy, and mystery, and it introduced Hollywood to Hitchcock's mastery. From there, the hits kept coming: Shadow of a Doubt, Notorious, Strangers on a Train, and Dial M for Murder. Each film wasn't just a story, it was an experience. Audiences never knew what to expect, except that their nerves would be tested. Then came 1954, and with it, one of Hitchcock's masterpieces, Rear Window. The story of a man confined to his apartment who begins to suspect his neighbor of murder captured everything Hitchcock was about. Suspense, psychology, and the idea that danger could lurk just across the courtyard. James Stewart and Grace Kelly brought the story to life, but it was Hitchcock's direction that made it timeless. He turned one small apartment into a world of terror, proving that suspense doesn't need vast landscapes, just imagination. In 1958, Hitchcock gave the world Vertigo. At the time, the film received mixed reviews, but today, it is often considered the greatest film ever made. It is a haunting story of obsession, love, and identity, with James Stewart delivering one of his best performances. Hitchcock's use of color, music, and the famous dolly zoom effect made Vertigo a film far ahead of its time. And then, in 1960, came Psycho. A film that didn't just scare audiences, it shocked them to their core. With its shocking shower scene, its unexpected plot twists, and its chilling portrayal of Norman Bates, Psycho redefined horror forever. Hitchcock broke every rule, killing off his leading lady halfway through the film, showing violence in a way Hollywood had never dared, and using music to make audiences scream. The film was controversial, terrifying, and groundbreaking. It cemented Hitchcock as the master of suspense. But he wasn't done. In 1963, Hitchcock released The Birds, a film where ordinary seagulls, crows, and sparrows became instruments of terror. Without explanation, without logic, the birds attacked, and audiences sat frozen in fear. Hitchcock knew that the unknown is always scarier than the explained. That's what made him great. He trusted the audience's imagination to do the work. What makes Alfred Hitchcock so remarkable is not just his films, but his vision. He was a pioneer of camera techniques, sound, and editing. He experimented with long takes in rope, shot an entire film in a lifeboat, and used silent stretches of tension that made audiences squirm in their seats. He also mastered the art of promotion, appearing in trailers, making cameos in his films, and even hosting his own television show, Alfred Hitchcock Presents. His image, round, serious, with his dry sense of humor, became iconic. But behind the legend was also a man with struggles. Hitchcock was known for his perfectionism, his control over every detail, and his sometimes difficult relationships with actors. He demanded everything for his vision, and while it made his films unforgettable, it sometimes came at a personal cost. Yet even with those flaws, his genius could not be denied. Over his career, Hitchcock directed more than 50 films, many of which remain classics studied in film schools worldwide. He received numerous honors, including a knighthood from Queen Elizabeth II, but surprisingly, he never won an Academy Award for Best Director, despite being nominated multiple times. Still, awards could never measure his impact. His influence is everywhere, in thrillers, in horror, in television, in the very way stories are told on screen. Alfred Hitchcock passed away in 1980, but his legacy is eternal. To this day, directors from Steven Spielberg to Martin Scorsese to Christopher Nolan cite him as a major influence. His techniques, his storytelling, his understanding of fear, and his ability to captivate audiences remain unmatched. He taught us that true terror is not about monsters or ghosts, it is about the human mind, about the shadows, about what we cannot see. Hitchcock's story is not just about film. It is about vision, innovation, and the courage to challenge conventions. He was a man who took risks, who believed in his imagination, and who never underestimated the intelligence of his audience. He made films that not only entertained but also shaped the very language of cinema. As we look back, we see Alfred Hitchcock not just as a director, but as an artist who painted with light and shadow, who orchestrated fear like music, and who turned cinema into an experience of suspense and thrill. His story reminds us that greatness comes from daring to be different, from trusting your instincts, and from never being afraid to make people feel something deeply, even if it is fear. And so, as we close today's journey into the life of Alfred Hitchcock, let us carry his lesson with us, that stories have the power to move us, to challenge us, and to stay with us long after the credits roll. He will forever be remembered as the master of suspense, a man whose films will continue to haunt, inspire, and captivate audiences for generations to come. Thank you for watching today's story here on Nation of Glory. If you enjoyed this journey through the life of Alfred Hitchcock, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories of Hollywood legends. Your support means everything, and it helps us keep these stories alive. Until next time, stay inspired, stay strong, and stay glorious.